Welcome back to Season 4 of Intrinsically Motivated. On today's episode, we'll be sitting down with Ashton Belcher. She's the Program Director of the Day Reporting Center and Community Resource Center. I'm Tucker Clements, Audio Engineer and Editor for Uplift Appalachia, and this is Intrinsically Motivated.
I mean, I'm going to say it for me because I've heard her say it, and I want to see if I can do the whole spiel. But it's so the Day Reporting Center is a prison diversion program for high-risk, high-need felony offenders with addictions. Did I get that right?
Yes,
did I get that right?
Good job.
I've only heard that 1,000 times doing all these different trainings that I do with my mom. So, how long have you been there? Because I mean, the program has only existed for, well, I guess it's existed for a while now, but in the grand scheme of things, it's still only. How long has it been going?
So we started in 2013.
Okay.
And that was part of a grant, a 3-year grant, which ended up getting extended for like 6 months. And the grant was through the Johnson City Police Department, and it ended in 2000. I guess it was 16. TDOC took it over. And I was hired with TDOC in 2017.
Okay, so you came on as it became like just
a baby, yes.
But an this is an ongoing thing.
Yes.
The program works. We like it. We want to keep going. And it's when you started, how big was the program at the time?
Oh my gosh, it was non-existent. So we had the males at first, and another program had females, and we ended up getting merged in. I think it was the same year in 2013, it ended up getting merged and made co-ed. And I feel like we had 4 participants for like the longest time. It just took a while to get the courts involved. We had a lot of like location barriers, because the eligibility requirements were like specific to a like location. So only certain people were eligible if you lived in the VA or Mountain Home area and downtown.
Right.
So that was a huge barrier. And then we got it extended out, and then it was like, does your grandmother live in that area? So
because to get into the program, like it's a court-ordered thing.
Yes.
So you have to kind of earn the trust and the buy-in of the court as well.
Correct.
That the program's beneficial and they shouldn't just, business as usual. We'll see you in jail and we'll serve your time and that sort of thing.
Yes.
So what was that process like early on, trying to connect and kind of build that relationship with the people who you wanted to trust to send, their people that they're responsible for, to let you guys kind of support them as well?
Yeah. I think because we were already affiliated with a probation agency, which was at the time the Alternative Community Corrections Program, and I was a probation officer with them prior to that. So I started that job in 2010. And I think because we were already affiliated with them, we weren't just like this external organization that wanted to create a program, which I feel like the judges get approached with stuff like that all the time. But we were already had like a standing in the community.
There was a foundation there
yes.
already. That helps. Yeah.
Yes. And we were also affiliated with the Johnson City Police Department. So I feel like there was a respect there, and there was already trust built with the judges. Now, I'm not saying trust in that we could lead a program, but trust as in not, the parameters.
You know what you shouldn't do.
Yes, exactly.
You're not going to make things worse. You're not going to, right.
Yes.
And so is it a slow trickle as it starts to grow and they start sending people, or did it all of a sudden, is there a point where it just kind of went, and all of a sudden we have way more than we feel like we can handle and we're just going to kind of hang on for it,
Yeah, it was slow. It was a slow trickle, like almost to a begging. And I don't necessarily think that there wasn't trust. I think people just forgot we were an option. So I think also, it took a while for us to understand what we wanted to do, how to be successful. We didn't have aftercare. Like it took experiences to understand what worked and what didn't work.
So you mentioned aftercare. I guess it's probably worth me asking. So what are all kind of the steps of somebody kind of going through Day Reporting Center's programming? What does that actually look like, and how is that a helpful alternative, I guess, to just serving out a sentence or something like that?
So we have 3 phases. Each phase lasts about 3 to 4 months. And when we give this spiel to referrals, like, we tell them, now, do not get hung up on like the 3 to 4 months. Sometimes they're like, on the, the very end of the 3 months, they want to move on to the next phase. But so it's very based upon their progress and how they progress in the program. And then after that first year of the phase 1 through 3, 9 months to a year, then they can move to aftercare. And that lasts about a year for us. It can last from 6 months to a year, but it's usually about a year.
And so when they're in the program, how often are they coming in? Is that every day of the week they're coming in?
So they report 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, from 8 until 1:30. And they have breaks in between each class, but they're attending 4 classes each day.
Okay. And is, depending on what phase you're in, depends on the classes that you're in, or is it just kind of based on the calendar, was what classes are being offered at the time? Or?
Yeah. So, I mean, we have like certain classes that we want offered, like in phase 1,
Right.
like job readiness, those very initial things that we want them to work on.
Yeah.
But we have groups that are also throughout, like substance abuse education, group therapy. Those are things that we want them to continue to work on.
Those are all the time kinds of things.
Yes,
yeah.
and they still do job readiness type stuff throughout that too, but we're working to get them prepared to get a job, so get their resume and that sort of thing. So in phase 2, then they report less. So the longer that they're there, the less they have to report.
So they can slowly transition into getting that job or whatever that looks like?
Yes, so they're given a little bit more freedom. In phase 2, it goes down to 3 days a week. Phase 3 is 2 days a week, and aftercare ends up being 1 hour weekly.
Just checking in, making sure things are progressing the way that they
Yes.
should be, that sort of thing. Yeah, good. So a lot of that's the kind of what the DRC does. But I'm not going quite too personal yet, but kind of from organizationally, why does the DRC feel that it needs to do what it does? Why does the DRC exist?
I don't think we had anything in our community that was quite like this. I mean, there were other programs, but not to the point where we were seeing them like 4 days a week, like all day. A lot of our participants call it school. And I just don't think there was a whole lot of recovery or treatment like the DRC at that time. Now, I will say that since then, our recovery community has grown, and it's been such a beautiful thing for us to be a part of. But at that time, I just don't think there was a whole lot being offered.
And so now kind of zeroing in just a little bit, what is it about what the DRC was doing that made you think, I want to be involved in this? What is it that draws you to this kind of work?
So whenever I was with so I'll start. I did my my bachelor's level internship in child welfare with DCS in the Juvenile Justice Department. And I always thought that I wanted to go into child welfare. But once I got into like the criminal justice part of it, there was just something that clicked with me. So whenever I started looking for jobs, it was more geared towards that. So I had gotten my first like career job with ACCP, which was a house arrest probation program that offered more treatment than regular probation. And when the grant had started, I was helping ACCP with like grant related stuff. I was in the very early phases. I had no idea what I was doing when it came to grants. I think I was just like looking for stuff, or they had asked me to look for different opportunities in the community. And this came up. My boss at the time had asked me if I would be interested in a job that involved a DRC. I didn't know what a DRC was. They said that there was like a YouTube video and talked about Georgia being like the prototype. So I was very worried because I didn't know what that looked like.
We're doing something new, so how can you know what you're getting yourself into?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And I had only been in my job for 3 years. I'd felt very inadequate that I could be over a program of something that I have no idea about. But I think once we got started, it was very much a passion, and it started out as this little baby infant, and now it's grown and changed, and it's been an honor to be a part of.
Yeah, how many clients do y'all have right now? On average at a time, I guess is probably the best way.
I would say we range between 70 and 80, and that's phase 1 through aftercare.
Which is
Yeah.
That's a lot of people. How many staff do y'all have that are helping kind of run classes and that sort of thing?
Between 12 and 14.
See, that's huge. Because I remember when I first started knowing about this, it was mom going to do lunch and just talk with people
Yes.
and that sort of and you know, it was a handful of people so that you could kind of really get to know those few people really well, which, you know, long term is kind of what kicked us off on the journey for what we're doing now, because all of a sudden we have this new, you know, brokenness and hurt for people that are in recovery and want to try to help them. And I think that's an interesting question. So you didn't really know what you were getting into. Had you done, so as I would assume, doing work in the probation system, you had encountered working with people that were in recovery, that sort of thing. What was it like now gonna kind of transitioning from I'm working on this particular, you know, case, this one particular, to I'm going to be with this small group of people, which obviously has ballooned to a bigger group. What's it like kind of transitioning into I'm going to be around these specific individuals all the time? What was your mentality like, or what was kind of your mindset like going into that transition, I guess?
I think that's what I felt was missing in probation is you had a long-term relationship with those clients. And when I say long-term, like you're not seeing them monthly. I was seeing them twice a week. Whereas probation, it's more of like a monthly type, like 15-minute check-in, which that has changed with probation also. But at that time, we had a closer relationship with the clients and kind of knew, you know, what was going on in their life. But going from 2 times a week to 6 hours a day, where like if they change the brand of their eyeliner, you're like, you know, what's going on? I liked knowing more about them and understanding kind of what led them to the situation that they're in. And not that it's an excuse, but it sometimes would be a reason, or you understood, you know, why they're in the situation that they're in. And sometimes I think we even can find solutions based upon knowing what they have went through in their past.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we talk about with a lot of people when we're doing training on like trauma-informed care and stuff like that, is just the power of understanding somebody's story helps you figure out the best way for them to be helped. And I think that added and so I guess you don't shy away from really getting to know all the people that you're you're there. And I'm sure there's some limitations on, you know, I'm not going to like hand you my personal cell phone number and you can text me all the time. I'm sure there's still boundaries and that's important, but just having that ability to really, like, you know, you're not preventing yourself from feeling like I can get to know those people that are coming through our programs. And I think that's going to help you, like you said, better serve them, like find better solutions for them long term. But also, I would imagine that, does it make it more emotionally taxing sometimes when you're having to? Oh yeah. When you get to know the people that instead of like not remaining detached. Yeah. Because I know when we do rides or something for somebody, it's like I get to know some of the guys that I've been driving. It's like I'm really concerned for your success. Yeah. And I feel that deep in my soul. And that's, you know, I've driven a handful of folks, but you got 70, 80 people at a time for however many years so it's like, I mean, even before we started recording, you're sitting here going through a list of names of people that you still keep up with. So obviously you care about these people. How do you balance caring deeply and knowing that you're there to kind of serve them.
I mean, I definitely feel more invested than I did just as a probation officer. Now, I know in my current role, which has always been the same, but my role at the beginning was much more involved, where now I'm in more of an administrative component. But I think the burden is still there. You know, we are invested in their success, and even when they fail, it's heartbreaking when you follow someone, especially if they're in like phase 3 and aftercare, and you follow them for 1 to 2 years, and you saw the strides that they made to become a productive citizen. They've like made contact with their kids, and they've, you know, started working on reconnecting with their families. And sometimes if they fail after that, it is heartbreaking. Yeah, I mean, I think for staff in general, we just try to take care of ourselves, but to not lose us caring about them, because
Right.
I think at that point it would be a waste.
Because I think it's a hard balance to strike. It's like you want people to do well,
Yeah.
and so you care deeply for them,
Mm-hmm.
but you also have to, you know, understand that in the kind of work that you're doing and the kind of work that we're hoping to get more and more people involved in, there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be
Yeah.
successes and failures and all of this. And finding that balance between, you know, becoming absolutely overwhelmed by grief, regret, what could I have done better,
Yeah.
but also still wanting somebody's good is a hard place to get to.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you get lots of opportunities to practice both the joy of the success part and how are we going to deal with kind of, you know, the way this person has fallen off or
Yeah.
whatever that different situation is, and trying to keep a good perspective about that
Yeah.
is a skill worth developing, I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, celebrating the successes and like remembering those. I think sometimes it's easy, especially if there's like a suicide or like an overdose, you know, like that's felt very deeply, and you question like, what could I have done differently? What did I say that could have led to that? Or, you know, you just run in your mind, and I think everybody would do that. But I think celebrating the successes and like, I don't know, if someone sends you a text message and thanks you, or sends a note, you know, talking about how we have changed their life, you know, I like always try to keep those to remind us, like, this is why we're doing this.
Yeah, I know, like our ride program has really only been up and going for the last year, but even in the last year, just a month and a half ago, they held a graduation for a bunch of the guys that went through one of the programs. And it's like, we got invited to go sit and watch these guys. It's like, this is a cool moment.
Yes.
They've done all, and it was job certifications and all this, but it's like guys that had never gotten to wear a cap and gown and get handed a piece of paper and shake somebody's hand. And like that to me, and most of those guys I'd never driven.
Yeah.
It was all of our volunteers, but it's like, you see the success of what these guys are accomplishing, and that's kind of what can keep you motivated for the work, and just knowing that it's actually accomplishing what it was meant to accomplish.
Yes.
Sometimes, because I think sometimes when you're inside it and you get busy with all the, you know, administrative stuff,
Yes.
or the trying to get the right people to the right places, it's easy to just get bogged down with the details, and you forget kind of the big picture. Oh, we're actually accomplishing something.
Yes.
And that's kind of cool.
Yes, and I appreciate that you said that, because I sometimes feel like maybe my role isn't as important because I am doing like administrative stuff and I'm going to court, and it just doesn't feel as like in the weeds, you know, with I don't have as much interaction with the clients as I used to. But whenever we have graduations, or whenever we have like a family and friends event, it's like, yes, this is why we're doing this.
I mean, we've cooked hot dogs for the last couple of years in the middle of summer, and it's like, I don't know any of these people by name. I mean, some of them I do because I've driven them or whatever. But like some of these folks, it's like I don't know them, but I hear them telling their story of what they've been through, and it's like, and they've got their family there and their friends are there, and it's always just very encouraging to hear. Even it's like, I don't know this person, but I hear what their experience has been, and it's just always it's so cool, and that it is motivating to help you kind of keep going. So I guess from the client perspective, so do most of the people that come through want to be there at the beginning? Do they even know what it is they've gotten themselves into when they get there? Do they have to ask for it, or is it one of those things they show up and I'm sure it's a mix, but or is it people show up and they're like, why am I here? What is this that I've gotten myself into?
So there's two different ways that people can come to us. It can be through their through the behavioral health specialist, which is like they're already on probation. Maybe they've tested positive and they've been referred to like the social worker, which it used to be called the forensic social worker, but now it's called the behavioral health specialist. So they'll meet with them, and if they're eligible for our program, the behavioral health specialist sees that they would be a good fit, then they would be referred to us. And a lot of the times they're like, why am I here? We're told to come to this assessment or interview, and I think for them it's more of like a checkbox. And then whenever they get accepted, it's very much a culture shock. And a lot of them are in the early phases of their probation, or in the early criminal career, which I appreciate because I feel like we're catching them earlier than
hopefully
being
you can
at the
prevent
very end.
what
Yes.
could be. Yeah.
Yes. So sometimes those people work out, sometimes they don't at that moment, but we always in the event that they don't work out, and because they're already kind of involved in their schedule, sometimes it's like an inconvenience for them, and it leads to a violation. But if they go back to jail, they typically will come back to us, and it's just a better
Maybe that was
start.
a better option for me than I thought originally.
Yes, exactly. So if people come from jail, that tends to be more successful. They typically know about the DRC. They've talked about it in the jails. They have like a kiosk.
Well, I imagine that by now, especially in the area,
the word is out.
The word's out that this is an option, and it may be a great option or a better option than everything else that's being presented. Yeah.
Yes. So, and it's not like we have tons of programs in our area. There's a felony recovery court which doesn't accept violent offenders. So that's ends up being like the eligibility criteria. Recovery court ends up taking the nonviolent people. We take the violent people. And yeah, they pretty much know what their options are before they even go to court.
Right.
They talk to their attorney. It comes up in court, and then they get referred to us. We do their assessment in the jail, determine whether or not they would be eligible. And really, I mean, I tell people I'm not really here to hand out like golden tickets. It's really to make you eligible. So if your plan is to go home to someone and live with someone that's your co-defendant or someone that has your same drug of choice as you, then that's not a good plan. So we utilize the sober living facilities in our community, which again, that has completely changed since we first started. We work closely with Recovery Resources, Bridge to Shore, Freedom House, and some of the other male facilities, and Oxford House. And even TDOC has grant funding that helps fund some of the sober living facilities up to 3 months while they're there.
Right.
So they can pay for that. We also have required a lot of our participants, if they're coming out of jail, for them to go into inpatient treatment. And that has just helped be a good transition for them from going to jail. They go to inpatient, and that also helps with their medication or any type of mental health needs, because if they're released from jail, it's so hard to get them in to somewhere, get their medication in that gap of time that they come to us. So
yeah, and gives them a chance to kind of figure out a little bit of what life's going to be like before but in a little bit more, with still some of that same structure that they're used to, which I'm sure is helpful too. I also love that you said there are some guys that kind of come in and they're not ready yet.
Oh yeah.
But we have a friend that we've talked about this kind of thing off and on for years, and she always talks about practicing recovery, and like you get better at it over time. Mm-hmm. And it's like sometimes I imagine some of these guys are coming in, they haven't practiced much yet. They're not quite ready for what it's going to take for them to kind of stay, through a whole program. But it's like as they kind of have time to mature or experience life again or experience jail again, it's like, oh, maybe I am ready for trying some different things.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, that's one thing that you eventually learn in the recovery realm is just to know whenever people are ready. And it's like, you cannot be so heavily invested in or have that hurt so deeply, because I mean, that doesn't mean that they can't come back. So especially the BHS referrals who, they're already out in the community. They've already kind of gotten into a routine. They don't have a job. They're actively using. They don't have great housing. It's hard to establish that when they're already out, So a lot of the times they can go to jail, come back to us, and it's a completely different situation. We can, set up that inpatient treatment and housing prior to them being released, and they're kind of set up for success from the very beginning.
Yeah. So so we've kind of talked about mentality coming in, but mentality making it through or not making it through the whole program. I guess, are there any particular traits or particular things in people that you see consistently playing out that help people make it all the way through, or things that are perhaps in the opposite direction, limiting factors to somebody's life that those you can tell, either you can tell or it played out again, and then when you go back and look, you're like, oh, well, this was the situation. What are the reasons that people do make it through, or reasons maybe that people don't make it through the whole program?
I think attitude has a lot to do with it. If people are coming in just expecting for this to be a huge inconvenience for them, which sometimes we see that like the first month, and we tell people, just give it a month, get used to the routine, because that routine part is really hard. If they've been in jail and they've been sleeping, like 14 hours a day, to come to us and have to be there at 8:00 in the morning, it's just a huge transition. And then, like with housing, living with a bunch of men and having all these expectations and responsibilities that they're not really sure of, it's just a lot to throw at them. So we're like, just try to make it a month, and then if you still have issues, come talk to us, which we still help them through it during that month. But I mean, we just want them to know up front, this is going to be hard the first month. So I think attitude has a lot to do with it, the routine, and then like recovery is just hard work. And we tell people, but you are responsible for picking which hard. Being an addict is hard, or using is hard, but so is being in recovery. It's like, but you're the one that is going to be responsible for ultimately choosing which hard you
right.
pick.
So what kind of support systems outside of, say, the program, like when they leave, do most of them, I know you said a lot of them are in the recovery housing programs. I mean, we work with recovery resources all the time.
Yes.
And I see the community that they kind of have within their own house, that sort of thing. Do you think that plays into some of their success sometimes, if they're coming from a particular program that is also kind of keeping that structure in their life versus?
Oh, absolutely. I think that those that are in sober living typically do better because, and it's not just about living there, it's about the community that they offer. We always had a problem whenever the recovery community wasn't really established, was they did well when they were with us, but like on the weekends, they just wasn't, there wasn't like a support system. And like that's really when we utilized Andy, like she was taking people to ball games and doing all kinds of stuff because they just did not have that support. And I feel like that they offer that, and not just Tabitha or Craig, but it's like all of their staff, but then also the other peers. It's
right.
Just, I don't know. I don't think we could never create that. That would have to be offered by someone else, and that's what they're offering to our community.
To just have the people in your life to kind of keep you, I guess, kind of grounded in what it is that you're doing too.
Yes,
it's easy boredom is a really dangerous thing sometimes. It's like, I have nothing to do. What did I used to do when I was bored? And it's easy to kind of fall back into old habits, that sort of thing. And so,
even for like emergencies, like let's say their car breaks down, or, we would like call a friend or family member, but a lot of them don't have that. They've burned a lot of their bridges. And I feel like this is just a built-in support
or
system.
Some of those problematic relationships that if you send them back into their family, like they need to separate from their family because that was their kind of source of so many of maybe their drug use or maybe the trauma that led to it or
Yes.
whatever it is. And it's like they need new community.
Yes.
outside
Well,
of that.
and a lot of the people that we don't want them to go back into their requested housing is because of drug use, but it's also because of enabling. Right. Like maybe their families provided them with, I don't know, endless opportunities to get drugs or alcohol, and it's just not a good situation.
Right, yeah. What are, I guess, some of the reasons that people maybe don't make it all the way through? I know we kind of talked about they try it for a month and maybe just the schedule's too much and they try to, I can't do this. But you also talked about there's some folks that you'll hear, you were in your last phase, you were about done, or you were in aftercare. And then what are some of the, I guess, are there any consistent things that you've noticed over the years that have kind of contributed to that?
Yes. So there's this trend, and I think this is with a lot of the other programs that I've talked to, like ACCP, IOP, Recovery Court. There are these certain clients that get to the end, and I would love to have a term for it, and maybe there is a term for it, and I'm just not aware of it. It's like this fear of being finished, like this fear of having more freedom. And I mean, I can name about 10 clients that just, I don't know, they just get to the end. They almost are ready to transfer to community supervision or move to aftercare. They just can't handle the expectation for more freedom. So that's one. I think life sometimes gets hard. It's like, it's the straw that broke the camel's back. Like maybe they're struggling with their job, their car breaks down. It's going to cost them $3,000. So they have to rely on net trans. Maybe they missed their ride, and it's just like after 5 or 6 different things, they just can't take it anymore.
Much, yes, that sort of thing.
Yes, I think those are the two main ones that and the routine. It just
right.
Yeah,
because they've gotten used to that whole life that they've been now living for this last year or 2 years or whatever it is, and now that that's gone, it's kind of back on them to be responsible for finding those ways to fill that. And hopefully they've been building skills along the way where they're going to now know how to do that. But at the same time, once it becomes real, once no, now I actually have to do it. That's scary.
I also think changes and milestones. So, like if they change jobs or they, I don't know, buy a house or, that extra responsibility sometimes is just more than what they thought that it was going to be. Or even if they reconnected with their children or they've gotten custody of their children, those are all just like heavy stuff,
How do I process this change?
Yes. So I think we try to walk closely with them during those changes, but sometimes they don't always communicate very well about what's going on. They put a smile on their face and they're like, "Oh, everything is going good." But
which is why it's so important that coming out of these kinds of programs that they have other relationships and community. And I know within your program, because the way that we originally got connected was doing meals during the day. Hey, bring in lunch, we can build a relationship, that sort of thing. And that's still ongoing, right? There's still folks that do lunch. Is that
every Monday?
Every Monday?
Every Monday. We have a rotation of churches that do that, and they really offer something that we just can't. We are always going to be affiliated with TDOC. We're always going to be affiliated with probation, with warrants and judges, and like they're only going to tell us what they want us, to know what looks good. Well, I shouldn't say only. A lot of them are honest about things that are going on with their life, but there are some that are just very guarded because of our position, which I feel like churches and other organizations can feel that need or fulfill that relationship that we just can't offer.
Right. And that's a lot of what we're trying to get churches motivated to do is like, even if it's, and it may not be taking a meal, but it may be when somebody misses their ride that we can give them that ride and we can build that relationship along. So they have, but they need to have the relationships already built so that they can know who to call in that kind of moment. And that's because it sounds like some of the things that people tend to need as they're coming out of the program, or when it starts to get to those kind of scary points, is somebody that's maybe not affiliated with the program
Yes.
that can say, no, it's okay. And even if it gets scary, I'm still going to be here.
Yes.
And I think having those kind of strong structures and support systems and community, like just having people in their lives is really going to help people feel successful.
Absolutely.
So just on that idea of success, so what do some successful stories look like for you? I'm sure you've gotten to see lots of people be successful. I'm sure there are lots of opportunities where you have to go say, why is your program worth continuing to fund, or something like that? The same kinds of things that anybody who's running some kind of program like this is going to need to be able to, kind of, hey, what's the success story? So what are some of your favorite things that you get to share when you get to talk about why this has worked so well and is worth continuing?
My favorite success stories are people that are now giving back in the recovery community. Whenever we go to graduations, different graduations in the community, and those people show up and they're working at Turning Point, and they're coming back to offer groups. It is just, I don't know. And a lot of them I get to work with, or they're working at Carter County Drug Prevention. And I get to work with on a different level. They were a client and now they're a part of like the treatment community. And those are my favorite. Like, I remember being in court not too long ago. And this participant was in court because of her position, with whatever organization she was a part of. And typically they would be in court because they're in trouble, but she was in court because she was advocating for someone. And it was just like,
you got to sit in a different chair in the courtroom.
Yes. And I was like so proud of her and I don't even know that she spoke up and said anything, but it's like, if she had to, it was because she was going to advocate on behalf of a client, because she's working and she understands this community. And it's just, I don't know. It's just,
I don't know if you feel this.
thing.
This isn't specifically recovery work, but I feel this. I think know kind of what you're talking about. So it's been years since I've taught guitar lessons, but I used to teach guitar lessons. I had like 4 or 5 kids that I would teach little guitar lessons to. And now at least one of them has continued to grow. And now he teaches guitar lessons for lots of these other little kids. And it's almost like you feel like you have little guitar grandbabies. That's how I feel. And so maybe that's I think it's kind of that same, it's almost like you have little recovery grandbabies out there. That's like, now this person that I helped is helping somebody else. And eventually that person is going to be able, and I think it's seeing the way that now, kind of exponentially increases the impact that people have is one of those really kind of cool success things.
Yes.
It's not just that they're being successful for themselves. They're being successful for other people.
Yes.
That sort of thing.
Yes. And it's just such a joy to just work with them in a different way. And I feel like sometimes that they may understand now some of our approaches where they kind of fought it while they were in the program, and now that they understand it and they're going out and teaching the same thing that we taught them, it's just, I don't know.
They heard it.
It's
They
awesome.
get it.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like when you hear them say, I used to tell you that, and now you're telling that person that. Yeah.
Yes. And this specific person like works in the jails, and she talks about DRC and sends us referrals, and it's wonderful.
It's when you know that what you're doing is
is
actually
meaningful.
what it's supposed to be. It's what it's like, this was the vision. This is what we thought was going to happen, and it's actually happening. We have those kind of moments all the time. It's like, it's actually happening. Like, we have people that we've given a ride to that are now giving a ride to somebody else. And that's in 1 year since we've really gotten this thing going.
Yeah.
It's like, what's this going to look like in 5 years, 10 years, that sort of thing. And you're kind of getting to start seeing some of that now because you've been able to be successful for so long. We talked a little bit about churches kind of bringing meals. I mean, our rides program, we're now picking up a bunch of the folks and driving them back to the recovery resource houses, 3-4 times a week to 3 or 4 different cities and that sort of thing. So it's kind of cool that kind of full circle, we're back to being an active, involved kind of community member alongside you all. What are some different ways that, because again, we're trying to motivate specifically people within the church to see this as an opportunity and to kind of demystify maybe the kind of scary parts of, I'm going to work with somebody in recovery. And you said, that sort of thing. What are some of the ways that community members or church people specifically can be involved in helping support what you all are doing?
Well, I think that just understanding addiction in general, like we are all affected by addiction. We all know someone that's been addicted to alcohol or drugs. And sometimes I feel like people look at it as something like a they and them. And it's like, no, like we're all affected by this. We're all involved in this. And I remember whenever we first started partnering with people in the community when we first started, and because of the program that we were affiliated with at the time, it was house arrest. So whenever we described it to them, they would ask if they had like shackles, and it's like, no, they're like out in the community. So I think just whenever you talk about people that are in recovery, or even people that are like justice involved, there's this image in their head that they have like a jail jumpsuit on, or they're in shackles. But instead of looking at them as just someone that's in our community, I think connecting with people in the community is really important for them, but also just being treated like a normal, human, and not, I don't know,
whatever label you would be tempted to put on somebody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think the churches bringing food in for our participants has been a really great thing for them. Even if they're not affiliated with a church or necessarily even believe or have any type of faith, it's just a kindness that sometimes they haven't been
They see
given.
people that just want to do something.
Yeah, and they're
kind
like,
for them.
so why are they bringing food? And it's like, oh, just because they want to, they want to like bring a hot meal for you.
They want you to do well.
Yeah, and it's like such a conundrum for them. It's like, but why? I don't understand. So I think just giving them kindness is just something that maybe they're not always used to.
Yeah.
And providing any type of like mentorship, or even support, asking them about like treatment. I think sometimes people just avoid talking about it as well.
You think it's going to make it worse to ask.
Yes.
But sometimes it's actually helpful.
Yeah.
To
So
just
if
have the conversation.
Yeah. So if you know that they're in like a treatment program, ask, how it's going, showing up for them during celebrations. So we have like family and friends events, and a lot of them have people that they bring maybe from a church, or maybe they're like in Celebrate Recovery, or attend some type like of recovery group that's affiliated with the church, and that's always like celebrated that they find those people in the community. Like there's different types of services that we work with churches on, with like food boxes. And I feel like we overuse because we have 75 clients, and a lot of them that are getting out of jail, maybe they haven't like gotten food stamps, or they haven't gotten a job, so they can't pay,
right,
for food. So we're like overly accessing like the same people for food boxes and those types of resources.
I mean, it's just any way to, I think, provide a new community for people that are not going to have connection right now. And I think one of the things that we always are trying to stress to churches when we're talking about getting involved in any sort of addiction and recovery ministry or any sort of work like this is it's not necessarily what you're doing as much as you're just available to be in people's lives.
Yes. Just like the back to school bash, like, again, just going back to, they're like, so who are they? Why are they bringing food? And like, I mean, we have tons of churches. My church even, like donates, I guess, and helps with like the food and the backpacks and stuff. And I don't know. It's just when you see all that come together and these kids are getting backpacks and they're celebrating with their family, which celebration has always looked different to them in the past. Celebrating for them is like, let's get high on cocaine, or let's all get drunk at a family reunion. So I think we're also modeling what that looks like. So when we have people in the community that are also coming in, they're seeing a different face. It's not us that they see every single day. And they're also celebrating in a healthy way. And, they're eating hot dogs with us and like clapping. And, I think it just models to them that, oh, this is what celebration can look like.
This is what the new life that we're working toward can be. Yeah, that's really cool. And I think for me, and hopefully for people that start to volunteer or come from, what people will start to see is like, if you come to one of these celebration events, or if you give somebody a ride, or you ride along with me while I'm giving somebody a ride, or whatever that looks like, it kind of demystifies and takes away that fear aspect that you were talking about. Like, are they going to be wearing shackles? Are they going to be in some sort of, jumpsuit? Like, what's that? It's like, it's a bunch of family people with their kids getting backpacks for school and having hot dogs, which is a pretty normal kind of thing to do on a Friday afternoon or whatever day. I can't remember what day of the week it is, but whenever it is, it's like, that's just like normal life. And I think that's one of the things that we want people to realize about getting involved in supporting people and programs just like the DRC, or just like, because I mean, I can think of a lot of times that you or somebody has reached out and said, hey, can somebody pick this guy up from Turning Point and drop him off at the DRC on this day? And it's like, yeah. And I think once you've done it, it's not scary.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to get involved. And I think, because I mean, like you said, you are, and I think when people hear you said this earlier, they won't take the violent offenders. We'll take the violent offenders. You hear that? Oh, they're the violent offenders. And I think that's good for people to know. But at the same time, just because somebody has that, I guess, label now added to them doesn't make them not worth continuing support.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, I've never walked in that building and felt, I'm in danger here.
Yes.
These people have the violent offender tag labeled on them. Therefore, and I don't feel that way. In your space, in picking somebody up and giving them a ride, it's like, I have never felt that way. Now, I'm not trying to say that means that anybody who does is broken or wrong or anything like that, but I do think it's one of those, kind of come experience and see what it's actually like on the ground, because and I think this is worth asking, just kind of specifics to your program, because you are no MAT, y'all are a sober
abstinence based.
Abstinence based. That's the word I was looking for. Sorry. Yeah, y'all are an abstinence based program, meaning nobody's on any sort of addictive medication, even in their program, even in your program. And I think which means all the houses that we're partnering with are also in that exact same situation.
Yes.
Or that wouldn't be. Why is that important for you all? And then why could that be important for, I guess, your clients as well?
I think the problem has always been mixing. Like, I feel like we would have to either choose one or the other. Whenever we first started, there were no like clear parameters around like MAT, and I feel like that was kind of just getting started, which maybe not. Maybe I was just becoming aware of it at that point. But we had a few experiences where people were trying to come off of it, and there was just a lot of unknown of what to do in those situations. Like, we had people that were detoxing in the middle of group. Like, we had a guy that was like literally throwing up in a trash can. And then the other people that identified that as their drug of choice, I mean, openly talked about being triggered. And I think it's been broached about like whether that could potentially be an option for the DRCs across the state. And I think just I'm trying to say this in like a politically correct way.
You say it however you need to say it. It's fine. I'll say the part that you can't say, whatever it is.
Yes. But I think those coexisting in the same environment would be very difficult.
Right.
Yes. And we wouldn't have enough staff or even enough space to like separate them. Right. So at this point,
it'd have to be two separate programs.
Yes.
And so, and I mean, obviously from our perspective, we want to try to replace all addiction with just, human connection and flourishing, all that stuff. And I think that from my perspective, I think you're going in a route that's going to be way more helpful for people in the long term.
Yeah.
And I think that that's going to be good for all of you. But also, as I'm also thinking of the potential volunteers that I'm trying to recruit to help support your clients at the same time, it's like, that's good for people to know. Like, nobody in this program are actively using even treatment medication.
Yes.
And that sort of thing as well, which is for some people a concern or whatever. And I think it's a question that people need to better understand.
Yeah.
But your program being abstinence based, I think is definitely helpful for people to understand as they're getting involved in that sort of thing.
Well, and there are other options. Like if someone was initially referred, maybe like, let's say they're coming out of court as a referral, and they're more interested in a MAT program, then the court would discuss like what other MAT opportunities they could have.
There are other options.
Yes.
Because that's one of the things that we tend to say is like, it's a tool.
Yes.
I think it's not as effective as a lot of the stuff that you're doing and a lot of the community building that we're trying to do. So that's why I'm glad that this program is being so successful, specifically, because I think it kind of shows what can be accomplished and that sort of thing. But again, it's a tool and there's still options for people that are going that route. But
yes. Well, and another cool thing about this program and sitting here with Andy is when we first started, like I said earlier, we literally had like 4 people like for hours at a time. And it's like, how much can you talk to them about for 6 hours with 4 people? And it's grown so much that there are other DRCs across the state that have created this same or replicated the same program across the state. So there's one in Knoxville, Chattanooga, Jackson, Nashville. They're starting one in Columbia, Memphis, Murfreesboro. And when I think back to us starting, that was never like a vision for me. Like that was way even.
We want to do the best with this little thing that we've been doing.
Yeah. It's like we're just focused on this program. The thought that it could be replicated, it was just so out of, at least for me, it was so out of my like comprehension. So sometimes when I think about like also the administrative component and not necessarily feeling like I have like a direct contribution, I think about that as well. And I
the
feel
way
like,
that it's been able to kind of
yes,
yeah,
and not that that's a reflection of me. It's just been a reflection of like the teams that have been put together, and it's just been kind of cool.
I'm just gonna ask you my one big last question, because I ask everybody this question,
okay,
and I get really exciting different answers out of this question. Because this can be related to your work. Okay. This can be related to the program. This can be related to anything in life, whatever. What are you excited about right now?
I think growing in my job, but more of like my personal life. And I don't know how personal I can be.
You can be as personal as you want to be. You can tell me however you want to answer that question, however you want to interpret that question.
So my husband just went on a mission trip to Guatemala. And so he's like heavily involved in like FCA and motocross. I don't know if you knew that. And he's come back with like this fire, and it's been really cool to see that. And I've since we've been together, which has been like 16 years, he's always been involved in motocross and had all kinds of injuries. And I feel like this newfound fire with like FCA and motocross has intrigued me, and I don't know what that looks as far as my involvement, and I don't know what that looks like, but I'm just anxious to see where that leads us kind of as a family. I have 2 young kids, and I just feel like God has lots of cool plans for us.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm interested. Makes all the injuries worth it, right? If it leads to some.
Yes. And I've always been like, okay, this last injury, we're done. We're done with this. And now that he's like kind of been involved with this, I'm like, okay. So like, I've like already put the schedule in my planner of all the different motocross events that, FCA is going to be there. And I don't know. Yeah. It feels like there's more of like a purpose
behind all the injury.
Yes.
There's a definite metaphor there for all the other things, like going through all the kinds of pains and struggles and stuff like that to kind of find what the actual outcome's supposed to be there.
Yes.
There's definitely something there.
Yeah.
So last thing I want to ask is more like, are there gaps in what you are trying to do that if you could snap your fingers and I could find you a bunch of new volunteers from the church, what are some ways that they could be impactful and helpful to what you all are doing even right now?
I mean, I think any type of need as far as transportation, food boxes, just mentorship, helping with food, showing up to celebrations, being willing to just serve wherever. I think being flexible, I think you guys do a really great job of this. Whenever you come to our back to school bashes, it's like, okay, wherever you need me. If you showed up with all the hot dogs and we were like, okay, we actually have someone else to make the hot dogs, if you guys could I don't know, go clean the toilets. We have an overflowage situation. You guys
I
would
will
just
find you a volunteer
Yes.
that will do that, and I will direct them to go do that.
I just feel like there's this flexibility
Yeah.
that you're not too good to help in whatever way is being asked, and I really
knowing
appreciate
that the way that you volunteered to help isn't always going to be the exact way that you end up serving.
Yes.
But I think, and you said you mentioned rides, and I always go back to rides just because obviously I'm passionate about rides because we do a lot of riding. But that's where those relationships
Yes.
start, so that mentorship can continue, so that desire, that invite to come to a graduation or a celebration
Yes.
or whatever it is, kind of naturally builds from an easy place to build a relationship, which giving somebody a ride is a great way to start getting to know somebody. And depending on
Yes.
how long that ride is, could be a great way to get to know somebody really well.
Yes. Well, and I think that relationship part is the most important. Even in the recovery community, if whenever our people build those relationships with their peers, they're still, well, this person could tell on me and it could affect my housing. Whereas you guys would just be there for no reason.
We can be a sounding board, and
Yes.
we don't have any legal reason to tattle on somebody.
Yes.
Which, not saying we want to sit here and be intentionally deceptive, but
Yes.
just to be, a place that somebody can feel like they can comfortably share what they're feeling is an important kind of relationship for somebody to have.
Yes. It's a relationship for no reason. You're just there because you want to be there rather than, for whatever other reason.
I like that relationship for no reason. I mean, it's like, I can see we have a reason, but at the same time, it's like for them, it's like, why do they want? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But it's like just somebody you can trust, and they
Yeah.
haven't had that before, or they haven't had that in a long time, maybe. Yeah, that's really cool. Anything I haven't asked yet? Okay, I think this is really good. I think there's a lot of really good content in here. So I'm gonna tie us off with a little. I don't actually have an official outro. I'm really bad at coming up with the official outro things, but I don't, because that means I don't get to talk with people anymore after we stop. So, but I've known about the DRC since it started, because I've known every single all the people that were involved, and I've known Becky since she
Yes.
was first all involved with getting it going. All of these things. And seeing how it grows, even if I'm not there all the time, every time I kind of get to reconnect or come be a part of one of the celebrations or back to school
Yes.
bash, or just pick somebody up and drop them off, or pick somebody up and take them home. It's always really cool to see the success that people are having in your program. So I know you said you get to kind of cherish those, but as somebody who's doing parallel work alongside
Yes.
you, I get to see this way that you guys have been successful, and it's always encouraging to me, because to me, y'all are just 10 years ahead of where we are. And it's I can see where I want us to be because of the success that you guys are having. So thanks for letting us just kind of chit chat about it and hear what's going on. And hopefully people are being encouraged and maybe a little bit more motivated to go get involved.
Yes. Thank you for inviting me.
This has been a podcast powered by Uplift Appalachia. To learn more, you can find us at upliftappalachia.org or at Uplift Appalachia on Instagram.